All right, guys, stay tuned, and we're going to get into the step-by-step process of buying a home.
You better get fired up.
Guys, good to see you. We're here every single Monday with What's Hot, where we talk about the hottest things in the real estate market at 11 o'clock. I appreciate you joining me. Today, we're going to get into the details of the step-by-step process of buying a home. Why are we talking about that? Well, because we've got a lot of buyers who are buying for the first time ever, right? The hottest price point here, at least in Port St. Lucie, is kind of that $300 to $450 range. That price point is actually, it's at certain price points within there, it is a strong, not just a seller's market, but it is a strong seller's market. Why? Because there are so many buyers coming out. They're coming in droves at that price point. 600, 700, 800, it's a whole different story. But those lower price points, very, very hot right now in Port St. Lucie. So with a lot of these buyers coming out and never having purchased a home, I thought, hey, let's go through the process. Let's just talk about some of the things that you should be doing, maybe the order, things you should be thinking, asking, so that you set yourself up for success. So the first thing is you've got the idea that you want to purchase a home. It could be for a lot of different reasons, but whatever that reason is, the idea pops into your head and you say, hey, I want to purchase a home. The first thing you want to do, in my opinion, and I don't know that there's really even a better option than this, I think this is the way to go, is meeting with a lender, okay? Find yourself a great lender. I think Google reviews are probably the best way to look at a lender. And you can also talk to a realtor. You can ask me. You can tell me who the lender is, and I can tell you how many deals they've done in the last year, how many, what their volume is dollar-wise. So okay, these people are actually active in the industry right now. They've got the experience. They've probably closed enough loans to where they've seen all the little issues, and they've got solutions to them, right? But find yourself a lender that you trust. Why do you want to get a lender right away? Maybe even 3 to 6 months out, because you might have issues. You could have issues on your credit. I've had people before, they didn't know they had issues on their credit, got with a lender, they pulled their credit, and boom, they've got some major issue that's either going to hold them back from buying or it's going to give them terms that they don't like, right? If you do that right before you buy, you could be in a bind, because now you've got to buy, right? So you're either not buying, which puts you into a bind, or you are buying, but you've got these unfavorable terms. That's a bind. If you'd known 3 to 6 months ahead of time, a lot of times what you can do is do different things to fix your credit, right? Maybe it was erroneous. You can send a letter in, you can get that taken care of, and boom, you've got your credit fixed. You're good to go. Maybe it's some debt you've got to pay off. You can get it paid off. All of a sudden it's paid off. Boom, you're good to go. It's a lot of different, or there are a lot of different things that could happen. But if you've got that 3 to 6 month buffer, you can kind of set yourself up for success. Same goes with cash down. I've had a lot of people before that think, hey, I need 10 grand down. Once we start talking about all these different things, they say, oh man, if I had 18 grand down, I'd be in a way different situation. It's going to take me 3, 4, 5, 6 months to get that extra $8,000. I'm making up mythical numbers right now. And I would be in a way better position. So man, I'm glad I know now I can actually go out and save. So getting that lender on the phone, talking about what it is you want to do, having them look at your credit, having them look at the loan product that you're probably going to use, telling you, hey, here's the numbers. Here's what you're going to need down. Here's how much you can afford. And here's what that monthly loan payment would look like when we include principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and possibly an HOA. Now you've got an idea of what you're looking for. Anybody who goes out and starts looking at homes, I get people all the time. How much are you looking toward? 400 grand. And then you start looking at homes. They find one, they call the lender and they say, change of mind. We want to stay at 350 and under. Okay, well, what a waste of time for everybody involved, right? What a waste. We could have found your dream home and now maybe it's gone because we went out shopping before talking to a lender. So get all that figured out, then go shopping. And when I say shopping, I don't necessarily mean out with a realtor. Again, if you're 3 to 6 months out, you're going to want to start shopping online. Pick your website, right? Whatever it is, Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, Realtor, eXp Realty, it doesn't matter. And just start looking. For my price point, whatever the lender told you, let's just say it's 400 grand. What can I expect in that 380 to 410, range? What's normal? If I want a 4-bed, can I get a 4-bedroom? If I want a 4-bedroom, but I want all new tile flooring, is that something I see often here? New construction, am I seeing that at 380 to 410? Maybe I want a half acre or an acre. Is that something I'm seeing at 380 to 410? If you put a little bit of time up front looking into this, you're going to set expectations with yourself that are reasonable, right? So now when you go out shopping for real in 3 to 6 months with a realtor, now you know exactly what your expectations should be. You don't have really high expectations, but you don't have really low expectations. High expectations may mean you go look at 10, 15 homes, you don't find anything you like, and you're severely disappointed, right? If you'd set your expectations 3 to 6 months prior, you wouldn't have that problem. If you are setting your expectations too low, you might go out and put an offer on the first home you look at. You don't want to do that either, right? But if that first home is the home, you want to know it's the home because you've done enough research that you say, hey, I haven't seen a lot of homes at 380 to 410 that have a new roof, 4 bedrooms, all new tile throw, a new AC, a new water heater, and it's got a third of an acre. This is really rare to find, and I know it because I've done my research. So now not only am I going to submit an offer, but I'm confident submitting that offer. Anytime somebody's not confident submitting an offer, I think, well, you probably haven't done enough research. Let's go back and kind of look at the market. Let's look at what you could get, what our options are, what the alternatives are, right? The plan Bs, and see if those stack up to what you're looking at. If they do, maybe we should look at a few more. If they don't, maybe we should get an offer in yesterday, right? But that gives you a little bit of understanding and expectation management. So now what you want to do is you want to find your realtor. How do you find a realtor? Again, I think Google reviews are probably the best way. And don't just look at who's got the most 5-star reviews. Actually read the reviews. See what they're saying about people, right? Are those the qualities that you're looking for? Look at the bad reviews and ask yourself, hey, are there a lot of bad reviews? And I would say if somebody has 1 or 2 bad reviews, I mean, everybody's going to have a bad review. It is what it is, right? But if they've got 3, 4, 5, and they've only got 50 total reviews, read them. Are they all saying the same thing? What's that realtor's response to those negative comments? Are you comfortable with that? Okay. And then you can look up and you can ask them, what are your sales like in the last 12 months? Are you selling 10, 20, 30 houses, or are you selling 2? 71% of realtors last year sold 0 homes. And if that's a friend or a family member, it's pretty common that that's the person you want to work with, but that person may not be the best. In fact, they're almost assuredly not the best if they've done 0 sales to represent you, right? You want someone who knows what you're getting into. They can share it with you clearly. All of the things that you're going to be concerned about down the road, they're already preparing you for them. So you know, hey, I understand all the cons to what's going on. I love all the pros. I'm confident moving forward, right? No hiccups, no scary anythings along the way. So find yourself a realtor. Another great tip for finding a realtor is you've already got that relationship with that lender. Ask that lender, hey, I'm looking for somebody who's, got a decent amount of experience. They've sold quite a few homes in the last 12 months. And you know me a little bit now. We've talked to each other a couple times. You know my personality, someone who will gel with my personality. That lender's going to have a great recommendation for you, better than any other recommendation you're going to get from a friend or family member, because that lender knows how they negotiate. They know how they work. They know what they're doing behind the scenes. They know how professional they are, and they've got a vested interest. They want the deal closed. So they're going to give you someone that they know can get the deal closed for you. All right. So now you got your realtor. You really want to time it out perfectly, right? So usually a closing is going to be 30 to 45 days. Some homes you can do quicker. Depends on the loan type. Maybe if you're cash, it's pretty easy to do quicker. But not every seller wants to close quicker, right? If they live there and they got to move out and they got kids and everything else, they might require 30 days or maybe even 45. All right. If it's vacant, you're probably going to be able to get immediately as quick as you want. Some buyers, the buyer, may not want to do 30 days. Okay, you can do 45. Could you ask for 60? Unquestionably. But a lot of sellers are going to push back on that. They're selling for a reason. Most sellers want to get rid of it, but some are fine with 60 days. That's fine too. So if you do the backwards math on that, 30 to 45 days, then I always tell people, you got to ask yourself how picky you are. And you know yourself better than I do. If we go out twice and we look at 5 homes both times, that's a total of 10 homes. And remember, we're not picking a random 10 homes. We're picking the best 10 homes that fit what you want. Do you think you would probably put a strong offer in? If your answer is yes, then I would add maybe 10 days to that, right? So instead of needing 30 to 45 days, start looking with me 40 to 55 days out. If you know you're picky and you're like, I don't know if I could do that, or hey, I want to negotiate 20, 30 grand off the price, then maybe we need to go 15 to 30 days extra out, right? So now you might want to go 2.5 months out from that date that you want to close. So do that backwards math, and you can do all that with your realtor. But now that gives you time to go look. It gives you time to shop. People have different confidence levels too. There's certain people, myself included, I could buy literally anything, a house, a boat. I don't know anything about boats. Let's take boats. A boat. If I knew I was buying a boat, I would spend 4 hours today researching boats. It's just my personality type. And when I go to meet the guy selling me the boat, I'd have the 8 questions that are pre-planned because of all the research I've done. And once they answered all those questions, I would know yes or no if I'm willing to purchase that boat. I would know roughly what that boat's worth. I would have figured out how to value boats. I would have done all that because I'm obsessed with stuff like that. Some people are very high anxiety, very emotional, and sometimes it's a slower process, and it needs to be a slower process for their personality. So you need to know yourself and know, am I a decisive, hey, on day one, I'm putting an offer in kind of person, or am I the kind of person who needs a little bit of time, nurturing, support? I need a ton of data to feel confident. You know yourself, so ask yourself that question so you can figure out that timeline, right? So now you go find the home, you love the home. You got your lender, you got your realtor, you got your house. Now you got to put in an offer. Okay. Every seller I've ever met with wants what's called a comparative market analysis. It's basically me just saying, hey, I'm looking at all the sold comps on the MLS. I'm looking at all the active comps, looking at all of that. Your home is worth X, whatever X is, right? I don't get a lot of buyers who say, what is this home worth? Instead, they say, let's put an offer in, and then they have a certain negotiation style, right? Some people, I don't want to lose it, full price. Some people, hey, can we try 5 grand off? Some people want to come in 30 grand low, right? And they're going to do that regardless of the house. That house could be 10 grand underpriced. It could be 40 grand overpriced. And they're still going to do the same thing that they're going to do no matter what, right? I recommend not doing that, because if a home is $10,000 underpriced and you found it on day one and you come in 20 grand underpriced, you're almost assuredly going to lose it in multiple offers, because that person's going to have multiple offers if they're 10 grand undervalue. All right. Whereas if that home is 40 grand overpriced and you put in an offer 20 grand under asking, you're still overpaying by $20,000. Why would you do that? You want to know what that property's worth. Your buyer's agent's getting paid on this deal. Ask your buyer's agent to do a market analysis for you and show you why it's worth X, whatever X is. So now I always recommend you should come in at full value, not necessarily full price. Okay. So come in at full value, but let's see what value is. I'll tell you, half the clients I work with as sellers, when I tell them their home is worth 500 grand, they'll say, great, let's start it at 520, right? That's typical. So again, if you come in 10, 15 grand under, you might still be overpaying. I highly suggest you get a market analysis done. That'll tell you what the property is worth, and now you can start talking about how you want your offer. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of an offer, but you're going to be asked questions from your agent like, hey, do you want an inspection? How long do you need for the inspection? What date do you want to close? What kind of escrow deposit do you want to put down on day one? You're going to want answers to all these questions, and don't fret. They'll walk you through it, but just start thinking about some of these things, right? What do I want an offer to look like? All right. And you're going to have a lot of those questions answered by your lender. When you met with your lender, maybe they told you you're going to be an FHA buyer. You're going to put 3.5% down. I need at least 30 days with a 21-day loan commitment. Great. Now I'm comfortable because I see everything that needs to come in on the lending side. That's half my questions answered right there. So you're going to know all that. So now you've got the negotiation period. Negotiation could be quick and easy. They sign off or they decline, right? That's also quick and easy. It's not great, but it's quick and easy. Or I've had some go back and forth 5, 6, 7 times, right? Whatever. But once it comes together, whether it's this property or the next property, now you need to get your escrow deposit in. An escrow deposit typically in this area is going to be 5-10 grand, unless you start getting over $500,000, right? Then you're talking 20 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, whatever. But that 5 to 10 grand for anything under 500,000 is pretty typical. That's typically what I'm seeing. It's a little bit of a red flag if you're seeing less than 5 grand, especially if you see the person's got to put 3.5% down, 5% down, whatever. You're thinking, okay, 400 grand times 3.5% is 14 grand. Why is your escrow deposit 2 grand? Does that mean you don't have the 14 grand? That's kind of scary, right? We want to make sure you've got the money. So typically you're going to see 5 to 10. Do you have to do that? Nope, you don't have to do that at all. You can do whatever you want, but you're going to want to get that deposit in. Now, the boilerplate language says within 3 business days. However, that can be changed. Your realtor could change it. You could put it as 1 or 2 to make yourself look stronger to the seller. You could put it as 5 or 10. It's not going to look as strong, but it gives you a little bit more time, right? But it's just a wire, or some title companies have an app. You can go on that, and it's a wire transfer or an app movement, just like you would do on your banking app online. It takes maybe 5-10 minutes. It's pretty simple. All right. You're also going to want, and I'm kind of putting a timeout here on the timeline, right? You're going to want to have a conversation with your lender about money. And when I say money, I mean the movement of money. Income is great. Bring all that in, but outgoing is scary. Okay. So if you're going to buy an RV or a truck or a four-wheeler or whatever, tell your lender first, because there's a good chance they're going to tell you, you better hold off on that till after closing, or your debt to income ratios are going to change and I'm going to have to decline your loan. So ask your lender first. And in the beginning, I said income is good. But if mom, dad, sibling, friend give you money, that's something, again, before you take that money, talk to your lender, because there's certain rules. Some of that money you can use, some you can't use. You can only use them from some people. Sometimes they got to be seasoned, which means they've got to be in there for 2 payment periods, right? You want to know all those rules from the lender before you put yourself in a predicament. So now you've got your escrow deposit in. The next thing is going to be inspection. Now, here in the Treasure Coast, typically I'm either seeing 5, 7, or 10 days. Could it be 3 days? Could it be 15 days? Absolutely. But typically what I see is 5, 7, or 10 days. Again, I like to make my buyers look strong to the seller, so I'm putting 5 days in. And I always tell buyers, you're not really giving anything here. It looks really nice to the listing agent, but in all honesty, we can get an inspector in there in 2-3 days. If you guys can make a decision in 2-3 days, that's it. That's all you need to do. So it's not really that big of a deal. And you look strong. So for me, I don't know why you wouldn't put 5 days. However, make sure you call your inspector. I have had it a couple times where I'll be ready to submit an offer with 5 days on there. I call my inspector and they can't get in there for 5, 6, 7 days. Okay, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to extend it out. But now when I call that agent, I'm going to say, hey, I wanted to do a 5-day. We like to be really aggressive for you because we want us to look good for you. But my inspector's pretty busy right now. That's the only reason that we've got it further out there. If we can move it up because something falls through in that inspector's schedule, we'll unquestionably do that. Right now, we've communicated, we look strong. Okay. So you're going to get that inspection done. What's an inspection look like? It's a home inspector coming in. They've got a Florida statute telling them exactly what it is that they need to look at. And they're going to tell you the condition of all these things. Is it good? Is it not good? Is it somewhere in between? And sometimes they'll notate things that aren't necessarily bad. They're just things you need to know. For example, just had one. It was a water heater that popped up. It was in great condition, but it was 8 years old. And the typical life on them are 8 to 12 years old. So it said, hey, it's in perfect working condition, but it is 8 years old. Max, it's probably got about 4 years life left on it. So it's not a bad thing, but it's something they want to make sure you're understanding of. What will they not see? They will not see intrusive things. For example, if you've got mold inside the walls and there's no exterior, I'm going to call them symptoms, showing that there's mold, there's no way for that inspector to know unless they cut a hole or do an intrusive test, and they're not going to do that. Do they go up in your attic and look in the rafters? Yes. Do they look in the nooks and crannies and the closets and everything else? Yes. But they can't see, on the back side of the wall where the toilet is or the sink is or the shower is. They can't see inside the walls, but everything they can see, they're going to tell you about. They're going to tell you if the AC is cooling properly or not. They're going to tell you if the water heater is working. They're going to check all of your appliances. And let's say something just isn't functional. I'm trying to think of a good example here. I can't think of a good example here, but maybe the microwave just won't turn on at all, right? Just doesn't work. They'll put microwave did not turn on at time of inspection. We did not inspect it. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means, hey, seller, you better show the buyer that it actually works because we weren't able to. But it notates that, okay? So that's your inspection period. I like the day after you get through inspection, ordering the appraisal. What's an appraisal? An appraisal, it's a third-party person, an appraiser, who's going to come out, look at the property, and dictate what the property's worth in a written value, okay? Why do we have the appraiser? The appraiser's there. You don't need an appraiser on a cash deal. And a lot of times if I see a 20% down deal, because there's so much skin in the game, you'll get an appraisal waiver, okay? Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. It is what it is. But that appraiser is going to come out and tell you what it's worth. Why? Because the list agent is getting paid a commission. They want it to close. The buyer's agent is getting paid a commission. They want it to close. The buyer wants to close. The seller wants it to close. So there's 4 parties. The lender's getting a commission. There's 5 parties who want it to close, and they've got a bias, okay? The bank lending the money wants a non-biased person to come in and say, what's this property worth? So they make a flat fee. They're not commission-based. They don't care if it appraises for full value or not. They're just going to give you a realistic, hey, this is what the property's worth. So they come out, they say, this is what the property's worth. If it matches your contract price or higher, great news. If it's lower, now you got 4 options. Either you walk and you get your escrow deposit back. This is assuming you wrote up your contract with a financing contingency and it's got an appraisal contingency embedded in it. The seller drops the price. That's obviously the best for buyers, right? Or you have to come up with that cash difference. Let's say it's $10,000 difference. You put in an offer for $400 and it appraises for $390. You would still have to come up with your, I'm saying 3.5% on an FHA here. You would still have your 3.5% to 4% in closing costs. Plus, you're going to have that $10,000. All right. And then the fourth option, which is the one I see probably 80-90% of the time, is the mixture of the two. So maybe the buyer comes up with $5,000 cash, the seller drops $5,000 in price. Or maybe it's 6 and 4, 7 and 3, whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as those two bend for a total of 10 grand or whatever the difference is, you're good to go. Okay. So that appraisal, you want to order right after inspection. Why not before? Because a lot of deals fall apart during inspection. And you don't want to order and pay for a $400, $500, $600 appraisal, and then the deal falls apart and you paid for nothing. So once the inspection is done, that next day, that's when you want to order appraisal. I've seen agents forget to do this. Lenders forget to do this. And all of a sudden we're 3 days before closing and we're scrambling and maybe it won't close. That's a problem. Okay. So you want to get that ordered right away to give that appraiser as much time as possible. Now, in the background, this isn't a task for you. Title and your agent and the lender are all working to get title work done, lien searches done, to get all the numbers from the lender, to make sure all the contracts are coming in from the realtor, all the inspections are being done. Maybe there's an inspection that you as a buyer don't even necessarily care about, but the lender does. For example, wood destroying organisms. If it's a government-backed loan, that has to get done, whether you want it done or not as a buyer, right? If you've got a septic and you've got a loan, that lender's almost assuredly going to want to see a clean septic inspection report. If you've got a well and that's where your drinking water comes from, that lender's almost assuredly going to want to see a clean water report. So you're going to have to do these things again, whether you want to do them or not. The lender might force you to do those things. Again, your realtor should be pushing all this for you, right? They should be telling you what you need between the lender and the realtor, and they should be helping you coordinate. Hey, here's who I'd recommend. This is why. If you want to use them, I can make the phone call, the email, whatever, to get that all coordinated. All you got to do is say yes. Yeah, that'll work. Great. Let me get to work on all this. I'll give you the dates, the times, everything else. Okay. Do you want to show up to inspection? Yes. I know I'm backtracking here. You want to show up to inspection. Why? Because there are things on an inspection report that I could literally read off the report to you and you're going to go, and you're going to get scared. But if you were there, the inspector would say, oh, there's a gap between your door and the weather stripping. You're going to have that in probably 30-40% of homes. If you've got a home that's 10 years old or older, I got it. I love my house. I've got a little gap. I can see sunlight coming through. Literally to fix it, to get weather stripping in there, if I do it myself, it's probably 20 bucks, 30 bucks, right? It's nothing. If you get a handyman to do it, it's probably 150 to 200. Not a big deal. But if you read it and you're not there in person to ask the inspector, man, could that be scary. So I always recommend being there in person. If you can't, have a phone conversation with the inspector at the end of the day when you get done with work or whatever it is that's holding you up from being there. They're more than happy to go through that inspection and make sure you understand the difference between scary things and not scary things, normal things and not normal things, expensive things and non-expensive things. Okay. Okay. So we got the appraisal ordered. Now, title also is going to see, hey, we're through inspection, surveys move or appraisals moving forward. I already gave away the next step. Now we're going to order the survey. Okay. So a surveyor is going to come out to the property and they're going to just do a survey, right? And here's the boundaries of the property, bada bing, bada boom. All of that is going to get put together along with all that other work that title was doing. And then they're going to come out and tell you, the buyer, here are all the issues you've got with the property. Now, usually there's not a lot of issues, if any, right? But sometimes you've got an easement or an encroachment, right? An easement is maybe you own the property behind me and your property is not touching a road, okay? My property is touching a road. So the only way for you to get to that road is through a road that goes through my property to your property. That road on my property would likely be my property, not your property, but you would have what's called an easement over that portion of my property, which is a partial right. Is it your property? Do you own it? No. Can you go take out a second mortgage on it or a HELOC? Or no. But can you use it for the purposes of traveling with your car to get from that road to your property? Yes, that's an easement. You've also got city easements, right? For electric and water and sewer and whatever. The city, the county, whoever has the right, certain rights to use that portion of your property. Okay. It doesn't mean they own it. They can't sell it, anything like that, but they have a right to the property. An encroachment is, okay, you and I are neighbors. I put up a garage, a detached garage, and 2 years later you go to sell and you find out that I'm 3 feet over onto your property with my garage. That's an encroachment because we did not have an agreement, right? I'm encroaching on your property. There's a lot of solutions to that problem, but that's a problem. So a lot of buyers are going to see that and say, pump the brakes. I want to back out. So if you're worried about somebody else's stuff being on your property, and I'm not talking about the floaty from the pool, I'm talking about a permanent structure, a fence, a house, a shed, a garage. That survey is what's going to tell you if you've got problems or not. Okay. Now that you've gotten through that, you're basically, no, I got one more. You got to nail down insurance. Okay. So once you get your home inspection done, you're going to send off a portion of your inspection to an insurance agent. I would always talk to at least 2 or 3, see what kind of quotes you get. Okay. Don't necessarily go with the lowest quote. Look at what it is they're quoting you. In fact, you want apples to apples quotes. So whatever it is you want with insurance guy A, ask him to print that off for you so you can share all those details with insurance guy B and C. Now everybody's quoting the same policy. Okay. So now you can look at your rates and you can say, okay, apples to apples, this guy's cheaper. I'm comfortable with that. Maybe you've got better policies that are more expensive and cheaper policies that don't cover quite as much. And you've got to decide, do I want to pay more for a better policy or save money, but I'm a little bit at risk if something does happen? And I'm not going to get into what's right or wrong there. It's so dependent on your situation, but that's something you'd want to consider. Okay. So nail down that insurance. Your lender is going to need a binded policy, which is like a committed to policy. And then they're going to have to submit that to underwriting. Okay. So now you're just waiting. At that point, you're just waiting. And title and your lender and your realtor are all working in the background to get everything done. They want to get the numbers done, the documents ready, all that stuff. And usually the day of or the day before, you're going to want to do what's called a final walkthrough. What's the goal of the final walkthrough? You're going to walk through the home and make sure it's in great condition. It's in the same condition it was in when you put the offer in, and it's got everything staying that you want staying, and it's got everything out of there that you want out of there. So if it said the washer and dryer were staying and now they're gone, problem, we're going to fix that problem before we sign closing documents. Okay. Or maybe there's a hole in the wall and it was an accident, right? They were bringing the bed frame out. They put a hole in the wall. It was an accident. Okay. You caught it before closing. So you've got a little bit of leverage. Hey, we're not going to close unless we get this fixed. You can either fix it or, I don't know, that looks like a $500-$600 issue to me. You could give me a $600 credit. You pick. Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. You got to negotiate, but it is their responsibility as a seller to get that property in the condition it was in when you put the offer in. Okay. The other situation I've seen is maybe in the garage, they leave a whole bunch of stuff that you do not want there. I suppose it could be in the house too. That's your opportunity to say, none of this was listed in the personal property section of the agreement. It's got to be out of here. So you need to get it out of here. And then I need to come back and see the home cleared of that stuff before I'm going to sign papers. It's not a negotiation. It is a negotiation with the hole if you want it fixed or do you want a credit. That's a negotiation. But the fact that the hole is going to get fixed one way or another is not. You as the buyer are owed that contractually. Them getting all their personal property out of there, not a negotiation. They have to. Now, if you want to say, hey, I'll keep it all, but you're going to give me $500 to keep it all because I'm going to have to trash it all, that you can negotiate. But the fact that the seller has to remedy the situation, that's not negotiable. Okay. So now you've done your final walkthrough. Now you're going to go to closing. Okay. And closing is fun. If you're cash, it's probably going to be 15, 20 minutes. It's really simple. If you've got a loan, that loan package is going to be pretty thick. It's probably going to take about an hour. Okay. You're going to bring your IDs with you, your licenses, driver's licenses, and you're going to go through 1 million documents. You're probably going to sign 50 to 100 times. And then at the end, they're going to hand you the keys and boom, you're a homeowner. Okay. Now you're going to want to get the utilities all transferred over, the water, the electric, the gas, all that good stuff. But at that point, it's your house. So you can start moving in all your stuff and you're good to go. Sometimes funding will occur after signatures. Okay. A lot of times they happen at the same time or even before. Funding will be there that morning. You sign that afternoon. If you sign before funding gets there, a lot of listing agents, a lot of sellers are not going to feel comfortable giving you the keys. They've got to see that funding come in first. It should happen the same day. It's very rare that it doesn't, but it does happen. So you want to make sure you've got a good lender who's communicating and getting that package out as early as possible. And now you'll be funded. You can get those keys. Guys, I hope this was helpful. There's a lot of steps there, but honestly, all the professionals, title, your realtor, your lender, they're going to walk you through all this stuff. All right. So just find yourself a good, experienced team that work well together and you're going to be good. But there's the basic steps. If there's anything you'd like me to go over in future What's Hot videos, feel free to put them down in the comments or send me a private DM and I'm happy to do it. Guys, have a great Monday and an even better rest of your week. Take care.